Australians are tough on their utes, more so than just about anyone else in the world, which is why when Nissan wanted to toughen up its Navara, it came here to develop a series of changes that are going to stretch around the globe.
Taking a step back for a second, the current generation Navara has had a tricky start to life in Australia. When it arrived in 2015, the dual-cab Navara was the only car in its class to use car-like coil springs instead of truck-style leaf suspension. The intention was to make it more comfortable to live with than other utes while being just as capable when carrying a load. It didn't work. When we compared the dual-cab Navara to natural rivals such as the Ford Ranger and Toyota Hilux, we found soft rear suspension was augmented by rubber bump stops that did a very poor job controlling the car's mass. Most cars only touch their bump stops in extreme circumstances, but the Navara's soft rear end would sag and sit on them with a static load on board, and get even worse when pushed on the open road. It was not a good arrangement.
That's changed. The Series 3 updates to the Navara have made it a much more capable vehicle if you're really going to put it to work. The stiffer springs in the back have really changed this car's attitude. It jacks up the rear a little bit higher with firmer suspension. That means it doesn't sag right onto the bump stops in the suspension as soon as you put a load in the tray. It really does change the way this car drives. The other important change is in the steering. It's so much faster than before. The previous generation Navara used to have to just work the wheel around and around to go through corners. They've made it much faster and more direct and added a little bit of weight and feel to the steering as well. Completely changes the way the car drives. It really is an important change, and it's something that Nissan has really worked hard on finessing in this car. It's great to see.
The model we're driving is the Navara STX, which costs $54,490 plus on-road costs, the same as it did last year. It's still powered by a 2.3 litre twin-turbo diesel engine with 140 kilowatt and 450 Newton metre outputs, driving all four wheels through a 7-speed automatic transmission.
Under the bonnet, you've got the same 4-cylinder diesel engine as before. There's never a weak point in this car. With twin turbochargers, it offers heaps of torque and a very smart 7-speed automatic transmission that just gets the job done without any fuss. Nissan hasn't made any changes to that, and they didn't need to. It works just fine. There are a couple of tech changes in the car, one of which is the addition of a digital speedo. Always nice to see. Unfortunately, Australia misses out on autonomous emergency braking. Now that's available in Navara models built in Spain, but our car comes from Thailand and the Thai factory doesn't have that capability yet. As soon as it does, the technology will be on the way. Australia definitely is asking for it, but right now it's not available, and so we have to go without it. We've tested the Navara laden, unladen, and while towing. With nothing in the tray, the new suspension does make it feel a little bit jittery, a little bit tight. That's going to happen when you raise the rear ride height and stiffen up the springs naturally. Something has to give, particularly when you're using the same shock absorbers as before. There's just a little bit of pitter-patter in the rear end that was always there in the Navara, but I think it has been magnified just a touch with these new changes. When towing, it's great. The car feels much more stable than before and just generally impressive. But the big change is with the load in the tray. Right now we've got 650 kilos in the back of this car, which is getting up pretty close towards its limit. You can only put around 900 in dual cab utes these days, and with a passenger on board and a full tank of fuel, that's getting towards where you'd want to be with a little bit of a safe zone. And it really has changed the way that this car drives. The rear end feels so much more stable. It feels much more in sync with what the front of the car is doing, and generally I have a lot more confidence in the car. I pushed it a little bit on a country road earlier, and through big mid-corner bumps it felt much more secure than before. Early signs are that these are very impressive changes, and hats off to Nissan for doing them. It can't have been cheap to do a development program with 3 trips to Australia for engineers driving thousands of kilometres in these cars and working to improve their product to make it the best that it can be. It would not have been cheap, and it also represents something of a loss of face because the brand put a lot of effort into the original car, and then it's basically listened to customer feedback and come back and said, you know what, guys, maybe we didn't get it right the first time around, but we're prepared to listen to those changes and take them on board and give you the car that you want. What we want to do now is take the Navara and test it on home turf with weight in the car that we've tried in various other utes, perhaps testing it against some of its close rivals to see how the Nissan performs in context with other vehicles and on roads that we're much more familiar with than these test routes outside Melbourne.
Nissan should be applauded for making these changes. It listened to customers and the media when developing the new Series 3 Navara for 2018, improving on the car's ability and user appeal. The new Navara is on sale now.